Hello, good morning, everyone. Let me start recording. Oh, it's actually recording. That's good. Good morning, good morning. I have Shatib with me, Shrestha, Matthias. Good morning, guys. Shall we just check if you can hear me well? We have more participants joining us. Good morning. Lamsan, good morning. Rose, good morning. Shangwen, good morning. Kim, good morning, Kim. I think Kim is going to start today a small, like a short announcement about the club. So they will let me a little bit wait until I see if we have more in the waiting room. We have Amanchor just joined us. Arafin just joining us now. Welcome, guys. Welcome, Arafin. Yeah, welcome, Arafin, Lam, Van, Trankson, welcome. Amantor, Rose again, yeah, Parsa, Thresta, Sun, also welcome, guys. Maybe we should begin now. All right, good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today in the second workshop organized by the Programming and Business Analytics Circle at Tokyo International University, and of course, with the Alumni Association, Tokyo International University Alumni Association. I am not sure if we will have any alumni with us today or many alumni with us today due to the fact that this workshop was scheduled during the weekdays. I should have probably put it on Saturday rather than on a weekday. So I apologize, but in any case, this is a recording of the video of the lecture, and hopefully more alumni will have the chance to join us virtually through the recording. All right. Shall I just ask you guys just to confirm that the video is clear and the voice, also the sound is also, you can hear my voice, sound is clear. Good morning, Parsa. Good morning, Trang. Good morning, everyone. The sound is clear, guys. All is good. I'm going to share the slides, of course, as usual. Yeah, it's clear. Good, good, good. Guys, I just would like a moment of your time. I have a very motivated young student here with us, Kim-san. Maybe some of you knows Kim. And Kim is working with me, or I'm working with her, in fact, to promote a very interesting circle at Tokyo International University. This year it's like it's in its infancy. So we just started operating with the circle this year. She would like to say a few words and probably share a little bit of a flyer about the circle to encourage you, if you're interested in such topics similar to what I'm giving right now today, you could also join the circle, and we will be arranging many events. There is an event we're arranging so far in June, and we will have somebody from talent, the talent department from IBM, who's going to be joining us and talking to us more about the job market in Japan, in the IT industry, and so on, as well as talk about his experience giving us advices on job hunting and so on for such related fields. This is only one of the events that we are scheduling for the upcoming months of this year. Kim, would you like to say something?
Is it okay if I share the screen so people want to join can scan the bar, the QR code?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Can everyone see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay, so
Yes.
thank you very much. So hi everyone, my name is Kim, and I'm a third year digital business innovation student at TIU, and I'm interested in analytics, modeling, and programming. Therefore, I decided to create a circle with Professor Nora named Business Analytics and Programming Circle, and we would foster our interest in performing real-life projects in business analytics using R, Python, or similar tools. Well, you could join the boot camps, workshops to complete a project with Professor Nora, and also we have guest speakers to provide you like professional guidance skills for your career. Um, Recently, we arranged a project for now for the circle, and also maybe in June and August we will have like an intensive one so we can meet weekly with each other. So really expect that those who join our circle can acquire some basic knowledge of programming and also analytics. Well, thank you for listening. So I'm really looking forward to making more friends with the same interest. Thank
And
you,
also,
Nora.
please share, Kim, please wait. Please feel free to scan the QR code on the screen. If you scan it, you will get the link to a Google form to complete a form, very brief form to join the circle so that we can get your email and email you whenever we have any event.
Yeah. We also have the email. If you have any concerns, please contact the email below.
Okay, there are some more participants. I have and others. Nadia also just meeting now, just joining now. So for those who are just joining now, don't worry, we haven't started the lecture yet. Kim Sun is the leader of the Business Analytics and Programming Circle, and she's just asking if you would like to join the circle by scanning this QR code on the screen. She will also probably drop the link on the chat, wouldn't you, Kim? Every now and then drop an announcement on the chat, because we will have people getting admitted. Every time I will announce that some students or some participants are admitted. So maybe every time I make some announcement, similar announcement, you could just drop the line so that they can get access to the link and join the circle.
Okay, sure.
If you don't mind. Thank you so much. I'll make the announcement for you. So guys, let's grow this circle. If the circle grows, then we will be more and more motivated to service you or to serve you and organize more interesting workshops. All right, thank you so much, Kim. Thank you. So I would go ahead then, and if you guys noticed, last night I sent you the set of slides, but I will also drop the set of slides in the chat section so that everyone will have access to them again. So I'm gonna, for now, give you the set of slides and the Excel sheet on the chat. If you feel it's more convenient for you to get it through email, go ahead and check your email. All right, thank you so much, everyone, and welcome to the second workshop on customer lifetime value. And in today's lecture, hopefully we can, now it is 10:08 or 10:10, hopefully we can, within time, within reasonable time, we can finish both the slides and the Excel sheet. If I feel that we have a lot of discussions and questions, then we probably going to finish the slides today, and next time, the next workshop, maybe we will make it a bit like within 2 weeks and in the weekend, we can finish up with the Excel sheet. But hopefully we can do everything today. Today I'm going to talk about something quite interesting for all of us, which is profitability from the marketing perspective, not the accounting perspective only. It is, of course, built on accounting foundations and finance prediction, but it's also from a different perspective of the profitability on the long run, on the future. When marketing, indeed, one of the things that saved many marketing CEOs and managers was this science, the customer lifetime value. Let me give you a little bit of a background on that. Turnover rate of marketing managers, CEOs, directors is the highest among all like senior management titles or levels or positions in the United States. And of course, everyone follows the United States, like in Europe and so on, developed nations. Why is that so? It's because there are certain targets that the marketing director or manager needs to meet with his salesperson, people or personnel, and he or she is given only 3 years to around that much, 3 years or 5 years to show results. What happened is, or what happens usually is, they run campaigns and all that, but there is a spillover effect for advertising campaigns. You run a campaign for a week. You expect only the customers being acquired within this week to be used as a metric of the performance of a campaign, but this is not the case anymore. We have something in marketing called the spillover effect, meaning after this 1 week, the effect of the marketing campaign is still running, still there. And a few acquisitions happening after these campaigns could be attributed to that advertising campaign. And this is called the spillover effect. It's very difficult to model, but if we have anybody with us here using Google Analytics, for example, they will probably notice that there is a CLV, and Google also helps you compute their spillover effect. But their spillover effect, you need to read the documentation and see how they compute it, because with this science, computations depends on the assumption. You might have a different assumption than Google's assumptions on computing the spillover effect, and this is absolutely fine. My idea here is to introduce you to this world, the world where we say that when we organize any marketing event, any marketing campaign, any marketing activity, give us enough chance, enough time horizon to show the performance of the manager or the director. For example, how often do you buy a car? Every 5 years? There's a segment buys a car every 1 year. There's another segment a bit bigger in size, buys a car every 5 years. The biggest segment in Japan buys a car if there's 2 double household income. Then they buy a car every 10 years. Why? Because after the 10 years, when the car is 10 years or older here in Japan, you have to pay more for road tax. You have to pay more for the inspection, what we call it check-in, every 2 years. It will cost you about $1,000 or more, actually around $1,000 to $2,000, especially if your car is not a K car. It's not a yellow plate, it's a white plate. So people will find out that, you know what, that's it, I used it for 10 years, let somebody else get it, use it for a very cheap price, and I'll get a new car. So the expectation is the time horizon for the customer segment that Nora belongs to is actually 10 years. The time horizon that you belong to, let's say 5 years, you're richer than Nora, so you buy a car every 5 years. So this time horizon is actually the time that needed for any promotional campaign or product development to actually show retention, to show satisfaction, to show results. This is a very extreme case where the time horizon is really long. But let's say that the time horizon is 2 years, like your mobile phone contract. Your mobile phone contract is a 2-year contract. So the marketing manager would need probably minimum 5 years to show results, because this is, if you start in 2022 or 2020, then the first cohort, the first group of customers that you acquired with your new strategy, for example, that you implemented, will show results and you will reap all the benefits out of them in 2 years' time or 4 years' time. So now when we're talking about the performance of a marketing manager or a marketing department, performance of a marketing campaign, we're not talking about the performance at the end of the quarter. This is for sales. This is why I tell you there's a difference between sales and marketing. Salespeople, they have KPIs, key performance indicators. Every quarter, they have to meet a certain goal. This is sales. Marketing, on the other hand, they put forth or put on the ground or enforce certain strategies or implement certain strategies, and they hope that this strategy will help make more sales or the growth but it needs time to show in the future. So my performance as a your performance as a marketing manager in a developed, very well running random company will be actually evaluated based on predictions. Okay? Predictions requires assumptions and so forth. So I hope with this very short introduction, you understand the importance, in fact, or one of the importance or important points on customer lifetime value. All right, let's go ahead with the next slide and see what we have for today. Would like to talk about my source of data. My source of data is WOW Telecommunication. WOW is a word in Senegalese. So it's the first local Senegalese telecom company. Most of the telecom companies in Africa or Middle East, or maybe some in countries in Southeast Asia, they are foreign ground companies. They are coming from mostly Europe because of the proximity, or the United States. I would like to just give you a background, a very short background. Last time I talked a little bit about it, but for newcomers with us today, would like to talk a little bit about the telecom industry in Africa. Africa wasn't a very attractive market back in the time. The idea of foreign investors, like those headquartered in Europe, the idea was, I just got somebody admitted now. The idea was Africa, very low income nation. They actually work by the day and by the week. There is no permanent jobs and salaries going into the bank. So how are they going to pay their monthly bill? Here in Japan, you guys pay a monthly bill for your mobile service. But maybe some of us, when in other countries, we don't pay it monthly. We do a prepaid, or we have both, the monthly contract as well as the prepaid card. Prepaid means when you got the money, you get the credit, you use the service. So use as you go, or use as you charge. This kind of business model, this tweak, this change, this a shift in the business model. And Mr. Mohammed was the founder of a company called Celtel. Now Celtel was actually bought by a telecommunication company called Zain from the Gulf. It's a Kuwaiti telecommunication company that bought Celtel for billions of dollars. So the idea was, the assumption was, or the leap of faith for such an entrepreneurship endeavor was, if the man in Africa can spend money at the end of the week on bars, drinking alcohol, getting socialized with his friends and family, going out and relax for a while and spend some good portion of his salary or her salary just going out that Friday night, about 10% or more, they may as well find a way to spend money on a very important necessity, which is communicating through a mobile phone. And that assumption proved right. Now, in Africa, we have many telecommunication companies and many foreign investors coming to Africa. I would like to mention one little thing. If we have anybody also from the IR program joining us, they may be interested in knowing also the relationship between these foreign investors, local telecommunication companies, and the government. As you may know, even in Southeast Asian countries, it's a similar situation. I'm going to talk a little bit about it from my experience. What happens in Senegal, that investors coming from Europe and elsewhere, they're getting facilitations, tax facilitations, reductions, waivers of fees and all that, because they want to encourage them to come and invest and so that they can help the infrastructure. Because telecom industry is very capital draining, capital demanding. They have to build towers. And this infrastructure is very expensive, the towers, and so on. In fact, Israel now, they have companies in Israel where they are trying to replace or reduce the number of towers necessary to transfer a signal. And in fact, Wow Telecommunication worked with a company in Israel so that they can get connection to islands away from the mainland. So have you ever questioned how the Maldives, for example, getting a signal, how islands in some countries, that Maldives, I mentioned the Maldives because it's an island nation, and I've been there myself. It's the signal is not that great, but there is internet in the islands. So in any case, right now, still the telecom industry is still requires a heavy capital. So what happens here with Wow Telecommunication, they kind of protested. The owner is actually a graduate from a university in New York. The financial officer is also a graduate from the United States, from New York. They actually met together. They are Senegalese students in the United States, and they met together. And then they started this endeavor together. They are still working together. The financial officer that we've been working with to get the data is called Mr. Dawood, and he was very helpful in providing us with whatever data he could, because some of the data is kind of very sensitive and classified, so he couldn't give us exact percentages or numbers and so on. But he was very helpful and helped a lot in the data collection. So this is the story about the telecom industry in Africa. They had to actually fight to get reductions and facilitations and from the government. The same applies, for example, to the coconut industry in Vietnam. I'm not going to talk too much about it, but if we have some IR students, they might be interested in knowing the relationship with the government. The coconut industry in Vietnam, and probably has many Vietnamese students. I would like to hear from you after class, of course, after this workshop, if you could help me, because I am doing a study about it. So please, whatever you know about it, send me an email or talk to me about it. I would love to know more. It's a fragmented farming country. Fragmented means I will own a little plot of land. You will own a little plot of land. Those who own big plots of lands are very rare, and usually big coconut water manufacturers, the very, very huge, rich businesses, and not all of them. So merchants from China and Thailand come into Vietnam, and they can pay more for buying coconut. So what happens? The price of coconut increases. Those manufacturers who are just startup companies, this rise of price hurts them. Coconut manufacturers who own big plantations of coconut and big areas of land, they benefit by the increase of price, because this is competition with the other smaller manufacturers, and also they can sell the bulk. If there's any extra, they can sell it locally as well with a higher price. So we can see the imbalance, or the imbalance that I would say corrupted and unfair government policies that gives merchants, Chinese or Thai or whatever foreign merchants, they give them facilitations and waivers and compared to those who are locals. the local, when the company wants to export bulk coconut water, they will have to pay for this export. Chinese merchant, on the other hand, take and go with a lower fees. So these kind of things need to stop, I believe, in some countries. It was important at the very beginning, but now there's no need for it. Vietnam is investing millions of dollars in enhancing their technological or the manufacturing technology to enhance the production line, and they are also gaining traction when it comes to organic certification, and they are actually meeting the standards, the global standards for exporting the packaged bottled coconut water. And the coconut water in Vietnam is known to be one of the best in Southeast Asia. Its sweetness level is high, and when it comes to nutritionist value, for those who probably don't know, it's indeed one of the most delicious coconut water in Southeast Asia. So if you visit Vietnam, do not miss a freshly opened coconut water in the street and have a taste. It's the bestest bestest quality, and it just hurts when we see other we call it country of origin brands like Thailand. They are growing really globally, but a big portion of their bulk coconut water comes from Vietnam, not only from Thailand, which could have been branded as Vietnamese rather than as Thai coconut water. And Vietnam would have been known for its very high quality coconut water rather than Thai. So Celtel or WOW telecommunication also still, after all these years and these centuries, we are still in various industries across the developing nations. We are still facing problems with fair regulations and encouragement of startup businesses to make money. And today, with our calculations, we will see the difficulty of realizing profits out of customer groups acquired over time. And I will show you how the pandemic made the situation even worse. And this is a call for governments as well to support their startup businesses. This is Theora. Theora is, she's not my student. I cannot claim that she is my student. I taught Theora in NUCB, Nagoya University of Business. I was teaching there marketing. Before I had the baby, I used to go there for teaching marketing, but now I don't go there anymore because it's difficult for me. And she developed interest in this area of study. And she wrote her thesis about it. And she sent me an email telling me, here's my thesis, take a look, professor. But she already had a supervisor. So I waited until she graduated. Once she graduated, I read her thesis. The calculations were off. But I have very big interest in this area in particular. It interests me a lot. So I contacted her. She got me in connection with WOW Telecommunication. She's a very bright lady. I'm very glad that she contacted me. And because of this, now we have this workshop with data that we got from WOW Telecommunication, which is a telecommunication company, just a startup company, started in operations in 2018. So this is a fresh data and fresh startup company. It started in 2018. In 2020, the COVID-19 hit us. The pandemic hit us. So it had only 2 years to show performance in the normal. And then 2020 hit, it's the abnormal. And it's still the effect of the pandemic. I had an assumption now based on this research. My assumption is the effect of the pandemic would last until the end of 2022. This is my assumption modeling this research, especially in Senegal. We published the results, but not up to the point where I'm gonna present with you today. In the Digital Marketing and E-commerce conference. This year it's going to be a virtual conference, but usually it's a very upscale and very reputative conference, usually held in Spain. So last time we talked about the acquisition cost. Acquisition cost is the amount of money that you spend on a marketing campaign so that you acquire customers. How do you acquire customers? How do I know that I acquired customers? Let me give you an example. On the system, I had 41 students registered. Did I acquire these students? These students are leads. This is 41. I always say that 50% is the chance whether a person will come or show up or not show up. And I was about right. Look at the number of participants today, 18, almost half. A little bit below half, a little bit below 50-50. But this is the 50-50 probability and statistics. And I would like to talk about it because we're going to talk about probability in a bit. So the probability of an event happening, you coming, plus the probability of not happening is equal to 1. This is a rule in probability and statistics, right? So 50% any person will come, 50% any person won't come. So if I have around 40 students registered, I will have about 20 students coming. If I had around this much, plus minus, that would be awesome. This means that this is a good workshop. If I have lower than this number, then probably it's a probably TIU population is not normally distributed. So acquisition happens when you actually come to the lecture. The same applies to business. You completed, for example, an online application that you are interested in opening an account in a bank or in a telecom company, but you need to go to the branch, to the physical branch, to show copies of your identification card or. Those who filled out the application online, for example, they are called leads, L-E-A-D-S, leads. Those who actually make the effort and go to the branch, to the physical branch, and complete the application and put a certain amount of money, minimum amount, to open up a bank account or provide their banking information to the telecom company to make the transactions, the payment transactions possible, then these are acquired customers. So once the customer pays money, once the customer places an order, once the customer completes a certain application based on whatever context, completes a booking, this means that this is an acquired customer. Completed a booking and also actually showed up probably in the premise. So this is called acquisition. Response rate is, what's the response rate for this today's lecture? Is 50%. So this is the number of those acquired coming to the lecture over the total number of registrants, over the total number who clicked on the link and completed the registration, over the total of number of people who showed some interest. A prospect is a potential customer. So this is the way that we define it. And retention is a probability. With CLV, you will find on the internet people talking about the churn rate. And I say on the internet, not because I am encouraging you to go on the internet. In a bit, I will show you huge mistakes, horrible mistakes and information on the internet. And I think probably people like me should dedicate more time writing on their blogs and promoting their blogs so that not only popular content is viewed and showed, but also quality content, some facts to check, for God's sake. I will talk about it in a bit. We're going to talk about the churn rate or retention rate. The churn rate is, what's the churn rate for today? Let's say that the 41 students came to the lecture, and now we are halfway through and we have only 18. So let's imagine we have 40 students, came to the lecture, and toward the half of the time, 40, we ended up with 18. What's the churn rate? What's the defect rate? The rate of students defecting. Do I have any answers on the chat? Or anybody would like to share with us? So let's imagine we have 40 students attending, and half of them left, or not half. And we have 18 or 19 actually now. We have 19 left. What's the number of those defected? 40 minus 19 over the total number 40. What's the retention rate? The students who've been retained until the end of the class. 19 over 40, right? Any questions about this probability and statistics? Very basic probability and statistics. So let's imagine we have 10 students defected out of the 50. Let's say 50 students or 100 students. So it's easier for you to see the percentages. So we have 100 students who were with me in class today, and 20 students left at different times before the end of class. What's the churn rate or the defect rate? The 20 who has left over the 100, 20% defected, and 80% retained, kept and stayed with me until the end of the lecture. Okay, so having the, yes, sir. So we will have 19 over 40. Why do you have 1 minus? Ah, I see. You have the brackets. Okay, so also the churn rate is equal to 1 minus the retention rate. So if I tell you the retention rate is 80, how much is the churn rate? 1 minus 80, 20. If I tell you the churn rate is 10, what's the retention rate? 1 minus 10 equals 90. Yes, yes, yes. So response rate, we already talked about it, which is the conversion rate, and customer lifetime value is basically the prediction of the net profit over futuristic, or not futuristic, over a future relationship within a certain. Hi guys, I'm sorry. I think I had a problem with the connection, right? Can you hear me well now?
Yes, Professor.
Yes. Okay, so this is the time horizon. As you can see with the time horizon, I will have different periods, starting from period 1 all the way to the expected relationship, the time of the relationship. So in the telecom industry here in Japan, the expected time of a relationship is 1 renewal of a contract. This is, let's assume that this is the market. You already know data. What happens if you don't know data? Then you probably won't be able to use the CLV calculations. Now, with the telecom industry, with this telecom company, we were not able to use the CLV in 2018 when they just been established. We started with them this year, 2021, because I had the data for 2018, 2019, and 2021. So now that we accumulated some data, we could do the CLV calculations. Okay, so for startup companies, it's maybe difficult to use the CLV calculations unless they by a company that already been in operation 2-3 years ago, and they have some data, and this company is very close, or a competitor very close to their business, they can actually subjectively predict it. You know that there's in a prediction, we talk about subjective and objective. Subjective predictions is when you get data. This is why security is very important. Somebody leaks data from a competitor, then I am also, this is a direct competitor very close to me. So I will know how the market is like through their data, for example. So now there is a big case, guys, a law case between SoftBank and Rakuten. That SoftBank wants money from Rakuten because one of their employees left and leaked a very important information and worked in Rakuten, and he leaked information going to Rakuten, and Rakuten started a new service based on the data leaked from SoftBank. Now in Japan, there's a big law case about it. So in any case, and this is one of the limitations of the CLV, especially if you are into entrepreneurship and you are a startup company, you need to wait a little bit, 1 or 2 years. In any case, there's a time horizon. It's the expected relationship with the customer. I expect in this industry, customer stays an average of, or averaging, an average of 4 years or 4 periods with me. If a period is a season, if you're into fashion industry, always using the seasonal collection, winter, summer, blah, blah, blah. So let's say the customer stays with me 2 years. This means 8 seasons. So if I'm doing my campaigns, when do you run the campaign? This is important. When do you run the campaign? So let's say we run the campaign every season, every collection, winter collection, spring collection, summer collection, fall collection. So every period, the period is defined here for a season, for 3 months, summer, 3 months, winter, 3, okay? So the campaign is actually organized and run, we run the campaign before the season. In our telecom company, they actually run campaigns in such a manner, it's not digital. They don't use digital marketing. This is bad. I think this is real bad, but probably Senegal, they still do business in Senegal the traditional way. They rent a very cheap rent. It's like what we call it, what do they call it in marketing? The gorilla kind of marketing. So what they do is they get some, they talk to the municipalities, they rent a certain hall or a certain outdoor location, they get some cheaper tent, or they have their own tent. But actually the student put in her thesis that they actually rent a tent. They don't even make their own tents. So it's very low cost because it's a startup company, so I understand that. And they just put a booth, basically, a mobile booth that is not even made by them, so that they can put it all the time for brand awareness. And they get customers through these booths. So they put an event, if there's a festival somewhere, they put a booth somewhere convenient for them so that they can get people to complete certain applications and get contracts and get phones with them, or get a connection service with them. So this is their marketing strategy. Digital? No digital, unfortunately. This is the second part of the research, in fact, to find out the opportunity, the missed opportunity. We call it opportunity analysis for missing out on the digital marketing campaigns. In any case, so let's talk about WOW Telecom. WOW Telecom, they dedicate the marketing budget twice a year, okay? I saw actually in their statements, so the statements that they sent to us, I saw in the statements that they have marketing costs only registered twice a year. So they put marketing costs in January and marketing costs again in June. So basically, I would want to define the marketing period, the period of the time horizon here. Are we going to define it based on their marketing spend, or are we going to define it based on customer staying with us, customer retention time. These are very difficult questions, but it's not very difficult in our case here, because customers that we're talking about are not customers like me and you. We're not talking about B2C. B2C, these are difficult questions to answer. And in the future, when I finish working on this project for the B2C, I'm gonna, of course, call you out for another workshop. Today, we're gonna talk about B2B, basically embassies, businesses, companies. And I thought I'm going to start with B2B because of what happened these days with the pandemic. B2C in the telecom industry in the pandemic surged up high. Why? Because even those who thought internet is not important for any reason, they had to bring in very high quality internet to their houses because their kids now are studying on the online, because they have to be working online. So B2C in the telecom industry during the pandemic was growing. B2B, on the other hand, I will show you in a bit how many businesses defected only in 2020. So time horizon, in this case, I'm going to put it yearly. But honestly, I am more keen to put it half a year, half a year. But for the purposes of the workshop, if I put it half a year, we will have a very big and long Excel sheet. And this workshop is for training purposes. However, now if you know how to do it for each year, you will know how to split it down into, instead of 5 years, as each year is the period. And I'm telling you that they dedicate or they allocate the budget and they spend the budget in within half a year. And you agree with me that we should put the period or set up the period as half a year, then instead of 5 years time horizon, we're going to stretch it to 10 periods. Each period is half a year, and then we can put the marketing cost for each period and so on. Yeah, we can do that. Of course, this is the right way actually of doing it. I believe this is the right way. And not because I believe, but this is the right way of doing it, because we have marketing cost, marketing budget dedicated to given in July, for example, or in June, and have to be at the end of June. So it's 1st of July, given at the beginning of July, and have to be spent until the end of the year. So half. So this is how we define the periods. It's very important for you to understand how do you define the time horizon. So time horizon consists of or is made up of different periods, and periods depends on the industry. Yeah. So if you go somewhere and you find somebody else talking about CLV and having different periods, not years, quarters, 2 years, or 5 years rather, this is the time horizon, maybe 5 years, or depending on the industry, especially in the contractual. In the contractual, it's easy to figure out the time horizon. So we're talking today about B2B, not B2C. B2B has contracts. So we know that the contract lasts for 5 years, and it's mentioned in the case they last for 5 years. You will find out, if you now search the internet, customer lifetime value, find out that there are different ways of computing the CLV. The most common and academic way of computing the CLV is in this formula. The only problem that I found on the internet is the explanation of the elements are put wrong. So please pay attention that the information on the internet is not correct. And I am also going to probably pass on to you a paper written by Mr. Kumar, Professor Kumar. He was one of the very, like I would call pioneers. He was one of the pioneers who started working with CLV. His paper was published in 2004. This is how ancient the paper is, but it still holds until today. Let's take a look at this equation. First of all, I should have put a sub here on the CLV, sub K or sub A. This is the customer lifetime value calculations for one group of customers or clients being acquired in a certain period of time. So we're assuming that the periods here is 1 year period. So we're going to take 1 year as one period. So T or N here is N. N is the number of years or periods, the number of periods in the time horizon. The time horizon is my expected length, the average expected length of the relationship with the client. And I'm saying client because when we're talking about B2B, guys, we're talking client. When we're talking about B2C, we talk customers. You understand that, right? So when you are in a B2B setting, you call it a client, my client. So the clients, guys, stay with us for 5 years. So my time horizon is 5 years. And the way I slice these 5 years is yearly, not half a year. I'm going to do it yearly. So N is the number of periods, which is the number of years throughout the time horizon. A is the cohort. The first cohort, I will start with a 0. Could I start with 1? Yes, you could. And I will show you mathematically how starting with a 0 or starting with a 1 could affect this equation, this formula. All right. So N is the number of years. A is the cohort. I am going to compute the customer lifetime value cohort by cohort. What does that mean? Guys, those whose student ID starts from 2020, they were admitted in TIU in 2020. They are one cohort because they stayed together 4 years. Same thing, same situation. These guys are called a cohort. Admission time at TIU is 2020. What is my expected time horizon and relationship with them? 4 years. So 2020 until 2024, then they graduate, goodbye. And how much is the retention rate? It's very high in universities. There are very, very few students who will transfer universities. So I would say it's in the late 99% or 98%. Same actually as in B2B setting in telecommunication. So this is known. I will talk about the first cohort. The first cohort is A0. A0 is the cohort we just acquired in 2022 or 2020, sorry. And N will be 4 in the situation of the university. So A is equal 0 and MN, what is MN? Anybody would like to tell me what is MN? Please read on the slides. I would like to hear from you. I don't want to feel like I'm the only one talking. What is MN? Come on, somebody say something to me.
So I guess it says contribution margin the customer generates in the year end. So yeah, contribution margin per year, I guess.
Thank you so much for repeating again and again, twice, contribution margin, not margin, not profit margin. Look into the internet, you will find out that some of the highly ranked results saying profit margin. That is wrong. It's never the profit margin. There's a difference between a profit margin and contribution margin. For those students who are good with accounting, what's the difference? What's profit margin? Anybody would like to share even on the chat if you're shy? What's a profit margin? Revenue minus?
Cost.
Cost of what? We have different costs. Let's just start with the costs. On the accounting balance sheet, you will have production costs or cost of goods sold. Do you guys remember COGS? Cost of goods sold, right? There are expenses, right, guys? In the profit and losses sheet, for example. the PL, what? Profit and losses. Yeah, the P&L. Revenue minus what kind of cost is a gross profit?
Cost of goods sold.
Yes. This is gross profit. How about gross contribution or contribution margin? Profit margin, contribution margin, same as gross profit, gross contribution. Revenue minus, yes.
Variable costs.
Yes. Revenue minus variable costs. If you never really captured the idea of variable cost in the accounting class, I hope this class will help you with practical real life example that you capture the meaning of variable cost. What is variable cost? So now we established that this M is actually not profit margin, not revenue minus cost of goods sold. It is revenue minus variable costs. Variable costs, what is variable costs? Tell me anything you remember from the accounting class.
So that vary with the unit of production.
It varies with what?
Unit of production.
With the production.
Yeah, unit of production.
With the output. It
Yes.
varies with the output. So this means I would like the variable cost that varies as I am acquiring customers. Production is not producing just services merely. Your variable cost takes a different context. We're talking about not a contribution of a product to the profit. We're talking about contribution of a customer. So people in marketing, what they've done, they borrowed this concept from accounting and applied it to customers. So they said, okay, there is something in accounting called contribution margin, and it is about knowing which products are more profitable. Isn't it, guys? Isn't it this one of the things that you learned in accounting, that you want to know which product is responsible for the most of the profit, or accounting for a certain percentage of a profit? That was a contribution margin in product setting and in manufacturing setting. We're talking about the contribution margin in terms of customers. Which cohort of customers, yeah, is what's the contribution margin for a certain cohort of customers? Which is revenue minus variable costs. Variable costs, all the costs that have been put to produce that customer, because this is the output of our context. So if you understand the context, the input and the output, basically all the costs that have been put as an input to produce a certain output, to produce a product, contribution margin for a product. All the input as in money and effort and resources, meaning human resources, time, whatever. This is why you have an overhead also in accounting and all that. Now produced what? The output. The output here produced customers. Isn't that beautiful? No, why do we need to learn more and more about everything in life? And this is why I always tell my students, take the opportunity of being in a business school, even for my DBI students. Take the opportunity, the very golden opportunity that you are in a business school, and take the 5 golden courses in any manager needs to know. Even if you're in the future, aren't you going to be a manager? Aren't you going to work on a budget allocation of your team members? Yes, you will. You need principles of marketing, management, accounting, finance, and HR. You need to know HR as well, because you need to know how to manage, what's the different organizational structures, how to manage your subordinates and all that. Or certain theories in HR is not bad. And of course, digital marketing. And of course, my other course in business analytics. No, just kidding. So these are very 5 golden courses. I believe it's a very good advice for my students. If you're taking electives, stick to the electives that will help you in your career development. And you can see now, to be a very good marketer, you need to be a very good in economics, very good in prediction analytics, very good in accounting, very good in finance. Where's the finance here? We're going to come into it in a bit. So now MN is revenue minus variable cost. How about CN? What is CN? Read it. Read the definition, please, for me, while I drink some water.
So CN is the cost of marketing communications or promotions targeted to the customer in year end.
Yes.
Uh,
So if I sum up the marketing cost, one in January and one in June, and put it together and say the period that it's been used over is 1 year, it's also a possible a statement and a possible assumption. And what does it comprise? Like now, it's easier said than done. This is the problem with, we're teaching in academia, we tell you, yes, marketing cost. Yeah, the marketing cost is easy. And then I'll give you an exercise, and the exercise is easy. And I'm sorry, I have to do it this way in my classes because there's no time, we're limited. But in reality, when you are working as a marketing officer, where are you going to get this information from? You have to go back and forth to the finance department. Even the finance department, guess what? I'm telling you, not because of this case study, but have some of my friends actually working in London. They tell me it's very difficult to understand and to make out which cost is the variable cost. It's difficult. It's not easy. There's no definitions in books. Yeah, they give you very easy context and they define it for you. But when you have a lot of data right in front of your screen, and Nora wants the variable cost for acquiring customers in this period. Yeah, but I was trained as a finance officer to work in variable costs for producing a certain product line. And actually there are applications that does the whole work for me if you work in a very big company. But Nora is giving me a headache in the marketing department. She wants the variable cost for acquired customers. It's not easy for the person in the finance department. So please be nice to them and always thank them and always be nice to them and understand that it is not they're not stupid. No, they work with finance all their lives and they're really good in what they do, but they are used to look at things from a different perspective. And now you're asking them to look at things from your own perspective. So marketing cost involves what? What is marketing cost other than the marketing budget? But is it only the marketing budget that WOW telecommunication? Yeah, marketing cost is only the marketing budget. But in variable cost to produce a customer, what would be some of the cost objects under variable cost? So marketing costs, we understand that it's only the marketing, the money spent in a marketing campaign, that we established that, the money spent on a marketing campaign. This is the marketing cost. How about the variable cost? In B2B, usually we get commissions. If you get more clients, you get an embassy, you get a company to sign up with WOW telecommunication, you get a commission. So commissions are actually variable cost in producing and creating these customers. Next, salaries. Do you think salaries are variable cost? Some of you might scream out loud. No, of course no. Salaries are there. No matter what, I am hiring this person regardless of the number of customers acquired. Valid assumption. But I have seen more and more examples where they tell you, you need to spend blah, blah, blah % of your time on this, blah, blah, blah % on your time in the job description. You probably would notice and smile remembering this workshop. You are required to do blah, blah, blah % on this task, blah, blah, blah % on this task, blah, blah, blah % on this task. They even tell you you have to dedicate this much % on this task. They're telling you because they know that they allocate a certain percentage of your salary to acquiring customers. It depends on the context. It depends on the finance structure, how they look into things. And trust me, if one day, I hope you work in a very big multinational organization or big corporation, that you will learn a lot. You will find out being a manager in these corporations is not an easy task. And hopefully you will be very happy that you followed my advice and took other courses like accounting, finance, marketing, digital marketing, all these courses. And don't say, I just want to specialize in one thing, no problem. In fact, you will be trained in your organization on that one thing of your interest. But the other things that will help you be a better manager, sitting on a table, talking to the finance manager, or being with your manager in a meeting. They might take you, they think that you have a big prospect in the future, they take you with them. You need to understand that they talk a language that you need to understand, so that you can see, you can understand how they think, and you can contribute easily to the conversation and smartly. So when they want to allocate certain percentages of things, if you know how they thinking, you will definitely talk about acquisition, retention, part of it. So this is partly also HR, finance, marketing, and this is about the marketing department. So when they talk to you about the job description of the people in your marketing department, don't just take a look and screen it. Yeah, this is HR work. I have nothing to do with it. No, the HR probably talk to the finance department. I probably want to talk to you about the percentage of time to be dedicated for certain major activities in the marketing department. One of the major activities in the marketing department is, if you have different units and one unit is just specializes in sales, this is why we have sales and marketing, and they are specialized in acquiring customers, easy peasy. You know that only these personnel salaries, 100% all the time, their job is just to acquire customers. This is why when you go to a certain booth, they come over and you tell them, I have a problem with my device. If the person is nice enough, he might take a look and help you. If she also smart enough, she would tell you, here's the number for customer service, please go and talk to them. Don't get offended and say, oh, why doesn't she talk to them about it? Because her time dedicated for acquiring customers and acquiring customers only, and she would be asked about her KPIs at the end of the quarter. So she's smart enough to follow her manager's advice by telling her, there's customer service people, let them talk to the customer service people, focus on other customers, prospects before they leave the line. So this is marketing cost. What is R? The probability that this cohort will stay with us. The probability that this cohort will stay with us. In our context, since we have a contract, the probability is really high. It's maybe 100% they will stay with us until the end of the contract. Don't you guys think so? How many of you left SoftBank in the middle of the contract? Anybody would like to share with us? You got a SoftBank contract for 2 years. How many of you actually left SoftBank in halfway through? They make it even bad for you to, very difficult for you to leave them, right? So the retention cost in our context maybe does not follow the R over N, but I put it as is because I wanted to show you understanding the context is very important. Not knowing the context, you are in a big risk. So here, R is to the power of N. For the first cohort, if we are not talking about contractual business, we're not talking about WOW, we're talking about any other business, and we are saying that cohort 0, it started with us A equals 0, then R to the power of N, and let's say that the time horizon, we started with time horizon equal to 0. Then R to the 0 is actually 1, which is 100% that this customer is staying with us, or this customer is with us, or this customer been acquired. depending on the definition of retention. Now, this is also another difficulty in marketing. What is retention to you? In university, retention is registering courses every semester. Even if you stop coming to classes for any reason and you get F, you still retained. You came and you register courses. Right or wrong? Yeah. Retention in any other store. Maybe in your case, your store, you know that a person will buy a certain product and use it for a year. So if you buy, the frequency of purchase is only once a year, it is retention. So retention sometimes is measured simply by saying minimum one order per period. Sometimes, most of the time. But the frequency is another story. Nora buys only once. You buy 5 times because you have the time. Nora doesn't have the time. Nora would love to buy time. So 5 times you buy a year. So you are a frequent buyer. I am not frequent buyer. But that doesn't mean I'm not very, very profitable. Maybe one purchase I buy for 5 yen. You buy 5 purchases, or you come over again and again 5 times, but your average order value is 3 yen. So that doesn't mean you're more profitable because you're coming more often, but your retention rate is maybe higher because you came 5 times within that period. I came only 1 time. So Nora, maybe we are worried, we're not sure. The probability Nora will come again next year or when is lower than your probability because you came more often. Wow, this is good. I know that you like my store and you will always come to my store. You got my point? Or you will often come to my store. So there are so many things you need to understand around this topic. And it's not easy. It depends on the context. You sit with your group, you understand the industry, and it's good to see how your friend, make friends in other companies in the same industry and see how they think about things. Because sometimes setting up the wrong assumptions can get you into wrong calculations. Garbage in, garbage out. This is why this topic also requires a lot of experience. And this is why I am willing, in fact, to work on as many projects and CLV as possible with zero reward. Now, I didn't take any money from Wall Telecommunication. I am just happy that they gave me the chance to keep on getting and growing experience, because you need to know. You need to work with different industries or work with different clients in the same industry so that you can actually build knowledge around that, modeling around the assumptions, different assumptions, and helping your client put forth the right assumptions. So you need to really listen and understand their context, understand their story, and then you will be able to give a better assumption. So RN, we're not going to use RN. We're going to use R for a certain period of time. What is 1 plus D to the power of N? Anybody took finance? Anybody would like to help? What is the yes, sir.
So maybe it's a profit from interest rate. Like
yes. There are so many ways that you can think of it, and only one way is the right way. Some of you might tell me it is the inflation rate. Some of you might say it's the inflation rate, right? Some of you, the inflation rate of the currency, so it is the present value of money. Some of you might say that, right? So if you took a finance, this is a deflating factor. It is, if you think of it, it's 1 over 1 plus d to the power of n. So it's a factor or an index. It's a factor, a deflating factor, and it is the present value of money, meaning the 1,000 yen that you can buy a bento this year, in 20 years down the road, will not buy you a bento. Will buy you maybe half of the bento, like a smaller size bento. So the value of money decreases over time. With this assumption or with this context, we will have what we call it inflation rate. So if you're thinking about it as an inflation rate, well, there's another interpretation of it, as our friend just shared. He said it's the interest rate of the investment, meaning if I didn't open up this Wow Telecom and I decided to use this money to invest it somewhere else, to invest it elsewhere, the average interest rate, investing it in the bank, investing it in whatever else, the investment rate, the successful investment rate in my country is to give a return of, for this kind of capital, is to give a return of 8%, for example. So this is the interpretation. So it might have different interpretation or dual. This money is an opportunity cost kind of interpretation. Also for those who took finance understand opportunity cost or risk management. So if I have this money, Nora have, for example, 2 million, 5 million. She either buys a Lexus, actually Lexus is 7 million. So let's say that she wants to buy a car, a fancy car, or she wants to start a company. Which endeavor is better? Buying a car, the car will depreciate over time. The value of the car will lose its value over time. But Nora, if she starts a business that she knows how to run, for example, she's good in digital marketing and so on, and she wants to work on digital marketing or e-commerce, opening an e-store and she knows how to do this thing. Which is better? Buying a car then, or opening up her own business that will make her profit, let's say 5% a year out of this capital. This is why we always tell our kids and our friends and our family, unfortunately, this consumption culture that we live in is killing our chances of survival. We all want to ride the bestest cars. Do you think I cannot buy a Lexus? I can. But then I will spend 6 years paying it off. Just Nora driving a Lexus. Which is better? Driving a Lexus and spending my money on a depreciated capital just to show off for social satisfaction. If I am not really into cars and I'm not really into Lexus and I'm a big fan, I also understand when you're a big fan, I spend a lot of money on other stupid things. But yeah, if you really feel you want it and all that, but please always understand that there is an opportunity cost. Always. For example, we bought the house in my family before we bought the car. Why? The house, the value of the real estate stays more constant. We will reduce our monthly cost because the monthly rent will be less actually buying the house rather than buying a car. Always think about it this way and know the interest rate in your region. Know it. You just grab a friend in finance and they will tell you what would be the interest rate in your country and make decisions accordingly. We in this setting, we will put the interest rate in telecom for 8%. So 1 plus 0.08 it's going to be to the power of n. When n is equal 0, which is the t or the time, is equal to 0, then this means that this is the first year with me. This is the first cohort. There is no future value for money. So we will just say, okay, it's going to be 1 plus d to the power of 0. And that would be 1. But then next year, I'm expecting you to be with me. There's a certain probability that you're going to stay with me, which is r up there. Hopefully with this r and with 1 plus d to the power of n, I will know that this amount of money that I am generating in the future, what would be the current value of it now? Yeah, so this is how we think of it. This is a different way that you will see this same formula on the internet. A equal 1. It depends. mathematically, if you start A equals 0, the formula will be equal to the number 2 formula or equation, sorry. Equation 1 will be equal to equation 2 because we did certain manipulations. So for example, when A is equal 0, R will be raised to the power of N, which is 0, which is equal 1. In equation 2, when A is equal 1, R will be raised to the power of N minus 1, which is 1 minus 1, which is 0. So if you find the equation in different forms, it is mathematically the same. The same applies to 1 plus D. It's raised to the N minus 1. Yeah, to the N minus 1. I'm sorry, I put A there, but A is equal to N. I should have put A is equal to N. So A is equal to N and A is equal 0. A is equal to N and A is equal 1. So I should have put it this way. Modeling the number of years. Here's the example. I'm showing you graphically that if we have year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, then year 1 will be 0 or 1, 1 or 2, 2 or 3, 3 or 4. So this is on your mathematical model will depend on your assumptions again, or on your mathematical structure. So even the model itself will depend on the range, how you denote. So if you denote the year N to start with 0, then this is the notation. If you put it as 1, then this is the correct notation. So it makes it equivalent. Let's take a look at the retention rate and the year. These are also computations right in front of you to show you how R to the power of N is equivalent to R to the power of N minus 1 when you have a different time horizon. I hope this makes it clear for you. Anybody would like to say anything? Do you guys see here that we have N minus 1 is equal to N when we have the time horizon starting differently? I would like you to read a little bit about the gross margin. I can see that many students are defecting right now. So maybe you have a class starting at 11:40. So maybe I won't keep you with me long today. And I promise I will make the schedule during the weekend in the future. So here's the gross margin, guys. Read about the gross margin and read about the contribution margin so that you better understand the difference. But we understood the difference. Gross margin, revenue minus cost of goods sold, while contribution margin is revenue minus variable cost. And this is my definition of the time horizon for this case study. We have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. So the time horizon is 5 years. So if you count them, they are 5 years, even though they end at 4. Then we have the data until the end of 2020. So until the end of 20, so here, year 0, the end of year 0, the end of year 1, the end of year 2, and so on. So at the end of year 3, which is 2020, we have the data. This is the assumption. 2021, as if we still don't have the data. And we are doing the prediction. So basically, I have the data for 3 years, and yet the cohort that the company acquired in year 0, I have to predict for its profit generation, let's say, or net profit or profit generation for the upcoming 4 years. And yet there's 1 year or 2 years probably. Here I have 2 years I don't have data about. So what I'm going to do? So I have total revenue for 3 years. How about year 2021, year 2022 for the time horizon, which is 5 years of the first cohort, the group of customers acquired by the end of year 2008. So year 2008, we started operation. We acquired a certain number of business clients, and these business clients, we expect them to stay with us for 5 years. Nora been hired in 2020. You are hired in 2020. You don't have data for 2021 and 2022, and yet you don't have 5 years of data to actually run regression or. It's quite difficult. So total revenue. Another difficulty is that in 2020, we had the pandemic hit. So in 2020, the pandemic hit, and we are still now operating in 2021 with high uncertainty, and many businesses are actually losing business. And in 2022, Nora expecting the relief that the whole world will be vaccinated, that we're probably going to end up being vaccinated every year in the future. And this vaccine thing will be like a flu vaccine, but we have to do it, not optional. So we will have maybe a passport that we will have to show that every year we got the vaccination until some scientists come up with a vaccine for life. That will be the most awesome thing, because you took vaccinations only once when you were a child for life against a certain disease, right? So now the challenge is to get scientists, to fund scientists, to respect scientists in this universe and fund them so that they can work on a vaccine for life. We get the vaccine once and we're fine and ready to go. But for now, Nora is expecting that the economy will still be unbalanced or still off grip until 2022. With this assumption in mind, I would like to show you what happened. In 2018, while Telecom started. In 2019, do you see the growth in revenue? 64%, the growth of revenue. The growth of revenue is increased 64%. Isn't that awesome? I think they were doing amazing. They were doing great. But then 2019 to 2020, look at the number of the change rate, -12. So this is how bad the pandemic has hit businesses, and yet this is nothing in the telecom compared to other fast-moving goods, for example, kind of businesses. They've been hit really hard. So in 64% in 2019, and then fashion got hit really hard. 2020, we have a drop of -12%, a drop of 12%. 2021, supposedly we don't know what's going to happen, but Nora expects a decrease still, a drop still, because the pandemic hit. So I took 12 out of the 64 to find a ratio and use this ratio to show how the drop will actually even intensifies in the year after. So I am saying that maybe there will be not only 12% to drop, there will be 14.4% to drop in year 2021. And then I took also the 14/64, which is the year that we were doing well, as a ratio to see what would happen in 2022, and the drop will become even 17%. So we will have a drop of, actually, the actual number is 12%. Then Nora says 12/16 is almost 14.4%. Then I will use it to expect. You can see it's a naive forecasting. We have no other data in startup companies, and many startup companies would love to know a guidance. How can I put a number? At least give any number. And actually, now my goal is to get the data from 2021 from Wow Telecom by the end of 2021 and compare their actual data to my naive forecasting. And then I did what we call mirroring. Mirroring means after the 2022, slightly we're going to grow. The economy will get better, will pick up. So I said, if 3 years of damage requires minimum 3 years of relief, this is at least what they tell you. You get pregnant, 9 months, they tell you it takes your body to deliver the baby, and many changes in 9 months. You need minimum 9 months to go back again to normal. I'm telling you, you need 2 years minimum. In any case, 2023, 2024, 2025, 3 years. So 3 years minimum, the worst scenario, it will take us to go back again to grow. So here is the effect in visually. So first year we were doing good, 64% increase, then drops hard, to minus 12%. Felt so bad for them. And now I'm expecting also still a continuous decrease and then an increase again. And you can see here how this over here is a little bit as sharp as the drop here. Now look at the revenue behavior. So these up to, I should have put a line here. This is up to 2020, up to here. So we can see that we have an increase, then a drop. I'm expecting a drop and then a slight increase. And I think this is something that all of us will expect. Over here, I was supposed to ask you which one of these costs are variable costs and which one are not. But because of time limitation, we already talked enough about variable costs. Would like to tell you something interesting. Variable costs, like with the student that I'm working with, she was surprised to know that variable costs could be expenses. Yes, it could be expenses. Variable cost of goods sold. Cost of goods sold could be, part of it could be variable cost as well as expenses. So variable cost could, it doesn't matter if it's cost of goods sold or expenses. You need to understand the cost objective, the cost object. So once you understand this cost object and you understand how it is put together, then you will understand whether it is variable cost that contributes into creating a customer. So over here, I'm just showing you the data and how we computed the cost of the variable cost from the cost of goods sold or from the expenses. And also variable cost, we have the data until 2020. So what is the estimation used? As you can see, variable cost decreases as your client base increases. Why? Because it's assuming everything stays still, like you don't hire more people to service more customers. Because at a certain threshold, when you have a certain number of customers, you will need to service these customers, hire more people. But we're not talking about servicing the customers, we are retaining them. We're talking about acquiring them. So let's say the market is stable and standing still or stagnant around the COVID-19. I don't think we will hire more staff to acquire customers. So in this case, as you can see from the data, there is a drop in the variable cost even before the pandemic by 7%. And it is natural, normal, and it's just healthy. This means your business is doing great. Why? Oh, this means that you're actually having more customers. So the same staff are actually used, or the same resources or the volume of resources used are still, but the revenue generators are higher. So when you divide, it's going to be definitely a plus for you. Then it decreases to 1.78. After that, I don't have any information. I thought maybe 1.78 is too much, or 78 is too much. So I stick to the worst scenario, but I took 17%. You will tell me what's your ground, on what ground you took the 17%. I'm telling you, I'm still trying to convince myself that this is the right way to go. Look at the graph. This graph is the variable, the number of acquired clients, and also this is also estimation, and I will show you how I've done it. The number of acquired customers over time, over and with the versus the revenue. And I have to scale the axis to an logarithmic axis. Why do I have to scale the axis? Because as you can see, there is a huge gap between the numbers. So we use logarithmic transformation of the axis so that we can see the behavior of the two curves. So performing a logarithmic transformation to see the behavior of the curves, even though the gap is huge between the values, shows a perfect mirroring. You can see how the revenue here is decreasing in a certain way, and also my way of predicting the number of customers, increasing the number of customers is also kind of symmetric. And this means this customers have actually been used, the number of customers been used to infer that the variable cost will decrease over time. Now, this is still, we haven't even started with the modeling. This is still prediction. And these predictions, you can use the moving average, for example. This is actually the paper that I put into the conference using the moving average, the simple moving average. So I computed the simple moving average. Then I didn't like the idea of just being lazy and just getting the simple moving average, knowing that with the simple moving average, I will take years. Look at 2018. Maybe some of you saying this is not nonsense. Maybe you're saying this is not scientifically grounded. So you will feel happier if I tell you, let's take the moving average. Is there any other way that we could do it? If we take the moving average, the average here will shoot up because the first year was a success. The second year was awesome, more awesome. And then 2020 was the drop. Then in 2021, that is supposed to be lower than 2020 or than 2019 will actually give us a number that is higher than 2019. So in my paper, I can say that I couldn't use the simple moving average. And this kind of assumptions and calculations are not rare. If you can show why you used it, and actually you can see the symmetry here. I'm gonna draw a line here to show the symmetry. I think this is a valid way of doing things, and it doesn't come natural. You have to actually look into the data and try to find a way. So trial and error is part of the scientific also investigation. All this, and we haven't still got into the modeling yet. This is all estimation. So this is just for me. I wanted to ask you again the difference between gross contribution. Please be sure that the gross contribution, even though I said it's total revenue minus total variable cost, that is not necessarily true. We're talking about the gross contribution margin. We're talking about the margin or gross contribution margin. In this case, we're talking about per customer, per client. So we always take the total revenue minus the variable cost divided by the number of clients. So please pay attention to that. Even though just for ease and simplicity at the very beginning, I started up building up your knowledge by saying revenue minus variable cost, but now I am upgrading your knowledge to understanding that when we're talking about even gross profit, we're talking about the gross profit per product item, per one piece, per one item. So the same applies here per one client. So it's an average. So the gross contribution also here, the computation is easy, and here's summary. The customers acquired, we have the customers acquisition for the 3 years. Again, I needed to do estimations for the marketing cost. The estimations with the marketing cost, you can see the drop, the huge drop in marketing costs, over 70% drop, because the business doesn't want to put more money into marketing because they know businesses, the economy is not growing. There aren't many new businesses opening. There are businesses going out of business. So look at the reduction, look at the drop in marketing costs, or in marketing, not marketing costs, I should have put marketing budget, sorry, marketing budget. So I said, I'm going to keep the marketing budget constant because this is really a very low budget. Below this budget, you're not actually operating. So I don't think, I talked to them, they didn't give me an answer, but I advise that below this budget, and this whole currency is not, is their local currency and it's masked. So all the information is multiplied by a certain ratio to mask the real numbers, but the behavior is still kept the same. So over here, I'm hoping that they listen and they don't drop the budget any lower. So with this assumption in mind, we keep it as is. Here's the retention rate. Same idea of the revenue follows with the retention rate. But retention rate of the year 2018, 2019 was 100%. So I have the data, the actual data. Nobody left the company. In 2020, 2 clients defected. So we put 2 clients over 135 total aggregate number of clients from 2018 to 2020, and we had a retention rate of 95 or 98, 98.5. But then, knowing that there is a pandemic, assuming that the retention rate will go down and will drop, I use then the R to the power of N rule, which is a scientific rule and all that established in between this period. So in this period, I raised the 0.985 to the power of 2, then to the power of 3. During the pandemic, there will be a decrease, and then a gradual increase. And as you can see, the gradual increase is just a mirroring. Instead of 0.97 and 0.95, I put 0.97 and then 0.982, gradually concave to get a concaveness, like a little bit of a concave curve here. So here is also the retention rate. It was 100%, 100%, then it dropped dramatically. Then we drop it even farther with the R to the power of N until the year 2022, and then hopefully there will be an increase. This is about discounting. So this is just a comment on discounting. I think I'm gonna stop here because I know that you guys have a class now starting at 11:40. So I thank you so much for joining me today. I will stop here, and in the next workshop, we're going to start working with Excel. We're going to discuss this formula and one more formula. I'm going to add equation, sorry. Then we're going to discuss this equation and one more equation around different variations of CLV calculations. And we're going to start working with the Excel sheet next time. Thank you so much for attending for today. If you don't have a class and you have any questions about today's lecture, please stay around and ask me any questions. So I'm going to sit down now and take your questions. Thank you so much. If you have a class, please go ahead and go. But if you don't have a class, I will be more than happy to have 20 minutes for discussion, for you to discuss things with me or suggest things to me or. I can also take your questions on the chat, and this lecture is recorded, so you can see the answer. You can watch the answer later. Oh, thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much for sticking around. You are retained customers. Anybody has any question or would like to discuss anything with me today? Yeah.
Professor?
Yes, sir.
So I recently, up until now, I've been, trying to find various sources to learn marketing analytics. And like there are various sources, but I find that sources that are based on Python programming, like with Python programming, the authors they don't tend to be like how to say, very statistically accurate. So like and the issue is that why is that? Like I noticed that like Python, like people who do their marketing analytics in Python, they tend to, for example, not tend to miss, for example, in the case of linear regression, they tend to dismiss the effect of multicollinearity in many books. But our users, they kind of more statistically accurate. Why do you think
They shouldn't.
Is this the case?
They shouldn't. It depends on the quality of the work of the person. They shouldn't dismiss the multicollinearity problem. They should test for multicollinearity. They should test for this example. So if you are reading a paper or a blog or research that people are writing the research and they are not taking multicollinearity into account, then understand that they are not really good researchers, with all due respect, unless they have a very powerful reason to do so. Second, I was thinking you're going to ask a different question, but let me just deviate a little bit. I was thinking that you may be wanting to tell me, why don't we use analytics and analytical techniques to help you, Sensei, do this work? There's a difference between a model and a technique. Technique is clustering, regression, neural networks. Yes, these are techniques for prediction. Or simple moving average. This is a technique. Naive, not naive, accurate, not accurate. Well, in one of my research papers, I found out that this naive averaging, the naive forecasting we call it, the moving average, actually provided me in a mall setting, provided me more accurate results than the time series forecasting. So what should I do? Just to show off that I know time series, I will write time series in my paper? No. I show that I did time series, I did naive forecasting, and actually naive forecasting compared to the actual data showed better results. In my case here, naive forecasting will not show good results. So I have to find an alternative. So I'm trying to find an alternative based on subjectivity and visualization, but I'm still researching. I'm not going to tell you this is the right way exactly. This is why I would like to still ask other researchers and yet myself read more papers and see if anybody else has a way out or did the same as I did. So I can say I'm not the only one. Other people also doing the same thing. But in any case, back to your question, I thought that you're going to ask me, why aren't we using these techniques? First, even though you haven't asked this question, but please allow me to explain that I have only 2 or 3 years of data, and all my data is aggregates. It is not client by client. Also, with the pandemic, we're talking about external variables like the market condition and I need to work with an economist, in fact, and I try my best now to read and learn more in economics to see how we can predict the market effect on a specific industry, which is the telecommunication industry, and not on the telecommunication industry, on the B2B. You see how difficult? Because B2C surged in the pandemic. The revenue coming from B2C is very high. This is how telecom industry stayed healthy. But B2B got hit hard. This is a model, not a technique. Techniques are different. Analytical techniques are different. They are either supervised learning. Nowadays, we're only talking about in analytics, business analytics, we talk about supervised learning, unsupervised learning. Sometimes we use unsupervised learning, which is clustering to do. Then after we label the data, the data is not labeled. So we do clustering. We label the data. Then once the data is labeled, we do regression, for example, or logistic regression for classification or. Then there's the third one, other than supervised and unsupervised, which is reinforced learning. Even higher level techniques, they are called reinforced learning. So if you maybe read the wrong paper, exactly like what I told you guys earlier in today's lecture, you're gonna come over or see some resources or blogs on the internet writing blah 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 about CLV, and it's wrong. I have done a quick search myself, because one of my students, in fact, back in the time, the idea why I know why is this happened. Back in the time, I used to use only this formula, and then my student told me, "Are you sure this is the right formula?" And actually, in a very uninviting way, I would call it. I use this formula, the one that you see on the screen, this one, that one top, the equation 1. Actually, I keep on saying formula, this equation. So equation 1, I used equation 1, and then the student tells me, "Are you sure you use the right equation and it's not n-1? I was like, "No, I'm sure." I go home and I say, "Why is she saying n-1?" And in a very rude way, like I got irritated, I got offended actually, that I still thought about it. And then I looked up at the internet. I started doubting myself. I found out that, yeah, there is a different way, but it's because A equal 1. And then I found out that even the information is wrong on the internet. So out of that experience, I'm telling you guys that there are different variations on the internet, not only about this topic, but about any topic. And this is why I think me as a teacher, I am obligated to give more and more of these free lectures to my students, so that if the students can trust academics and data information given to them or delivered to them based on references, not based on a blog on the internet. I'm sorry if my answer was really long and I answered the questions you haven't asked, but I am very thankful that you asked this question. Please be careful on where you are reading, and not every marketer publishing a paper, they are just researchers and high quality researchers. They're different types of journals, guys. So there are something we call it impact factor. Impact factor. If you want to read more about this kind of science, any science, Elsevier, for example, I love Elsevier publisher because they put the impact factor on the page, on the journal page. So you can easily see how good is the journal. So the impact factor ranges from 0 or none, which means that it's not really a very high grade journal. I can write a paper and publish it in such journals every month. But there are impact factor 1. The beta is impact factor 2. Beta and beta is impact factor 3. Beta and beta impact factor 4. Beta and beta impact factor 5. So right now, for example, I just submitted a paper for an impact factor 4.2. So please pray for me that it gets accepted and go through until it gets published. So there are different quality journals and there are different impact factors for each journal. So please try to read papers that comes from a journal, published in a journal that has an impact factor minimum 0.5, let's say, minimum 0.5 or 0.3, but something, some impact factor. Those journals that has nothing, no impact factor whatsoever, oh man, I wonder what kind of journal and papers quality. I just wonder, sometimes they publish the bestest paper, but they just want a very quick publication. For example, I have in mind this year, maybe I will publish something that doesn't belong to any impact factor because I want a quick publication, for example. So it's not bad, it's not always bad, but always, if you suspect a paper, take a look at the impact factor. If the impact factor is high, don't suspect the paper, suspect your knowledge. Let's do it this way. If you suspect a paper and it comes from a journal that doesn't have an impact factor, understand that maybe you're right. Most likely you're right. You're on the right standing. But I do not agree with them, even though they are marketers. And you're saying marketers in particular don't really care about statistical accuracy. I don't agree with that. No. We should be following the statistical accuracy and all that. But when we are faced with situations where we cannot employ the very well-established techniques, we call them techniques, to support our prediction and our model, then we have to use other unconventional methods. Are they absolutely correct? I myself not sure, and I haven't published the paper yet. I want to go to a conference in June. I am very humble and honest, you guys, with you. I'm going in a conference in June and looking forward to go to the conference. In the conference, I'm gonna give a lecture similar to what I've given right now, but only in 15 minutes, very condensed. And I'm hoping people can give me comments and can experienced teachers, experienced researchers can tell me, Nora, you could do this. Look up this technique or look up this method or look up this paper. This is why we go to conferences. So to tell you guys the truth, even today, I am happy that we didn't cover the Excel sheet. I'm hoping that by the time I go to the conference and talk to other professors in the field, hopefully they will give me feedback, either telling me or sharing with me their experiences that they had to do something similar because there's no other way around there. They've been also searching for other ways to do it, but they have to do this, or they may refer me to a certain special issue published in a certain journal talking about the prediction in the time of COVID-19. I'm still looking for, we call it a special issue, maybe 12 journal papers published about prediction in COVID-19. Look it up, guys, yourself. I've been looking up something like that, and I think people are still looking up ways, just like me. They are still looking up ways to predict the unpredictable, which is under high uncertainty. With COVID-19, it's very high uncertainty. If you look at all the techniques, guys, usually the machine learns from historical data, or the machine updates its policy, updates its action in reinforcement, reinforcement learning, updates its action based on also probability and statistics. But we don't have anything to mirror it. We don't have any historical data from a previous pandemic in the past. I hope gladly in the past, for example, 5 years or 10 years, we haven't had a similar pandemic, so that we can say in the 2, 3, 4, 5 years pandemic time, the data dropped in a certain behavior. You know, guys, how do we get the rule of diminishing effect, for example, in economics? The model of diminishing effect, collected a lot of data and plotted it visually. And visually, they found out that there's a line. It wasn't as nice and crisp as the line that we draw in our research. It was a bit wavy and noisy, but mathematicians found out that, yeah, mathematically, this line is exponential of blah, 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 is 1 over exponential or 1 over this and that. Yeah, you see? So even if you feel like, why is she looking at the visual? It is valid. It's only valid that we look at visualizations. Look at the history of how we came or how scientists came up with the rule of diminishing effect. The rule of diminishing effect, we can use it in marketing, in economics, in whatever. Very commonly used. They collected data, they plot the data, they kept on aggregating the data and looking at it. It looked very noisy. You cannot see that beautiful line there. But then, with the help of mathematics, started extracting the line. We can actually find most of the points, the data points accumulated around a certain behavior. And then looking again and again and deeply concentrated, that we look at through that line. This line mathematically, it is maybe an exponential. It is 1 over x, or 1 over the square root, or 1 over exponential to the power of x, blah, 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 and so on. This is how they come up with certain theories that could apply to the common general scenarios under certain assumptions. If you put an assumption, even in statistics, read regression analysis, you will find assumptions. One of the assumptions is multicollinearity. You need to read the assumptions, follow the assumptions, get the output. In my case, I need to specify my assumptions very clearly. And under these assumptions, I am following this method. Why? This method, I should convince myself before I convince others also, this method is the right method to predict. Sorry if it took me too long to answer your question, but it was really a very good question. Thank you for asking it.
Thank you for that.
Anybody else has any questions? Okay, so I won't keep you with me so long. I was really happy to have you today with me. Thank you so much for allowing me to give you this lecture, and I'm looking forward to receiving also some emails from the students who has left already. I'm sure sometimes I receive emails asking questions or discussing a certain topic with me. Please do not hesitate to write me. My email is nsharkas@ let me write it on the chat. My email is nsharkas@tiu.ac.jp. So please contact me, and I will be more than happy to discuss this project further with you, or even answer your questions. Thank you so much, guys, for now, and I will see you either in class or in Canvas. Thank you so much. Have a good day. Goodbye, guys.